Three, two, one, boom, we're going. Brandon Lilly, man, thank you for coming on.
Not a problem. Glad to be here.
South Carolina?
No, that's where so I'm based out of Kentucky, and then South Carolina is the Sornex home. So I have worked for Sornex now, going on really in proximity like 7 years, but official employee for 6. So just weirdly, after all my competition days and things like that, Bert gave me a job on the strength side of things, and then that evolved into the outdoor side of things. But yeah, I'm given a lot of freedom as far as working remotely and things like that. But a lot of my stuff, a lot of my benefit, I guess, is the interaction with people face to face, going to events and doing those kind of things. So it's worked out really, really well. And I mean, I've told Bert, and I've said it at other places, at the time of my life when he gave me the job, it changed my life. So it's been a really great thing for me.
Bert's a great guy, man. I had a pleasure of interviewing him a few weeks ago.
That's really the first time that I got introduced to you was through Bert, and then Aaron's podcast was on there, and both of those were great. So I was thrilled when you asked. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. How'd you guys meet? Strength and conditioning, probably?
Yeah, so Bert, he kind of created this event with Pops, his dad, around Summer Strong. It was kind of a birthday party deal that grew into a strength event. And in 2012, I was asked to speak at one of the Summer Strong events. And the funny thing about this, I tell it a lot of times because, I thought being the speaker, everyone there was coming to see me. And what I got was a real dose of like humble pie. Because when I walked in there, just by credibility and achievement, even though I was championship level powerlifter, speaker, worked in colleges as a coach and things like that, right in the door, the first time I meet Bert hand to hand, he goes, "Hey, I'd like to introduce you to Judd Logan. He's a 4-time Olympic hammer thrower for the U.S. team. And then over here's this guy. He was an operator for Team 6. So walking in with this kind of sense of self or ego, thinking that everybody's here to see me, I'm going to change this room to, man, what am I going to say after a 4-time Olympic hammer thrower? What am I going to say after a SEAL Team 6 guy?" But for whatever reason, that particular event went great. Kind of got asked to do another event and then another event, and that grew into an employment. So it just really, really, I would say that Bert, for myself, as much as I've seen him for other people, he is a nucleus for change. Like, he really does give you vehicles to grow and vehicles to improve upon, but you have to kind of stand up and walk for yourself. You can't expect him to do everything for you, but I have seen him time and time again impact, change, and help people. So I'm one of those guys.
It's amazing. Yeah, that kind of reminds me of I've been getting into some comedy lately. I've been watching a lot of it. For some reason, I don't know why. I've just been hooked on like Kill Tony and shows like that. And
well, dude, the world's a nightmare. You need comic relief. You know what I mean?
I know. Yeah, I think that's part of it too, because I've been going through some things mentally too. So I'm like, man, I could use a good laugh, And
for sure,
that kind of reminds me of like going on stage after like a Joey Diaz or a Rogan. Like, it's kind of a tough act to follow,
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the deals is you start to meet people like Bert or people that are super high achievers, and it can do one of two things. It can catapult you forward, or it can bury you in the corner. And I have just always been the kind of person, I'm competitive realistically. Like, in the space of powerlifting, I tried to get along with everyone. I was a little bit of a divisive character in that role. I talked a little bit of trash and that kind of thing, but I always tried to back up what I said, or I believed very firmly what I said. And as I got through all that, and I'm looking at all the people around me that were great, the truly great people just seem to be embraced and embrace everyone, embraced by and embrace everyone. And I think the guys that you were talking about there, like Joe or Joey Diaz or Joe Rogan, they kind of have that infectious character as well. And that would be true of the two gentlemen I'm speaking of at Sornex. Is these are guys that could carry a room. Their stories are magnificent, but every single story in that room that I heard was really about these individuals that are on stage. they were highlighting other individuals that had improved them or helped them or shown them a better way as the catalyst to why they're doing the things that they were doing to help others. And, for me, being employed by a guy like Bert, seeing the community that Bert has created, and again, I call him the nucleus as well, because he's like, man, we have so many great people. We have so many amazing people in our community and in our fan base, I guess you want to call it, but that's not the right term, our family, more or less. And he's like, we just have some really, really incredible following. And, but it's like, Bert, there's equipment everywhere. You know what I mean? Like there's 100 equipment companies. You're the draw. Like, you are the reason that these people are here. Your dad is the reason that these people are here. The established 40 plus years of commitment to Made in America, done the right way, overbuilt, over delivered, and just stated as fact. Like, this is the best that you can buy. And that's a pretty badass thing to be a part of. It's a pretty badass thing to see that community myself, but to be a part of it as an accepted member of that community, it's so much bigger than exercise equipment. Like, that's what I tell people all the time about Sorinex. It's like, it's a human being. It's not just human performance, it's human expansion. I know how to get somebody strong. I know how to get somebody faster to jump higher, but human expansion by proxy, yeah, you're going to get better and expand yourself in a weight room. But what does that do for your character? What does that do for your mental resolve? And then you throw in the fact that you're surrounded by like-minded individuals. It's a pretty impossible thing to beat. And that, to me, is something that no other company can touch. You can have huge events where there's thousands of people there. That's one thing. It's very hard to have an event that people come to just for the event, not to be seen at the event. They're literally there, phones down, just having conversations. So that's a little bit different in this day and age. And that to me, all of that, 5 or 6 minutes of pretty much jerking Bert off is really to say thank you, but also to kind of like let people know that this guy, this company is built and stands on something. And to me, in a world that's ever changing where people will sell you out for $1, that is irreplaceable.
And it's such a rare trait nowadays that when you see it or you hear it, you remember it, and it plays a big impact, because I try to surround myself with like-minded people just like you and just like everybody else that comes on this show. Mm-hmm. But it's tough to find those guys, man, or gals, and when you see it or you hear it, it just hits, and you just want more of it. You wanna keep talking. You wanna immerse yourself in conversation with that person and learn from them and take things from them and apply it, to your own life. And it's hard to describe, but when you see it or hear it, you really know, and it plays a big role.
Yeah, I one of those books, and this is the Joe Rogan piggyback, but he had Sebastian Younger on there. He wrote the book Tribe, and at a very, very kind of crossroad point of my life, I listened to that episode. I bought the book and I read the book, and it details. So have you ever heard of Rest Repo?
No. Can you explain it?
Okay. So Rest Repo was this Outlook post in Afghanistan. Basically, just imagine a needle point that was a target of attack from the Taliban, Al-Qaeda all day long. But it's a military installation for the U.S. It's like a very small group, 10, 15, 20 guys. And I don't want to butcher it. I've seen the documentary, but this is years ago. But essentially, it's a small group of men on this ridge top fighting day in and day out, just trying to keep the enemy at bay. And, he talks about the brotherhood that is formed in that moment. He's like, I could hate your guts, but if you're saving my life, because that's what you do, you don't care because I'm an asshole, you're not going to let me die. Like, your job and your soul is committed to doing the best that you can for your brothers. And he was talking about how that tribe really, it eclipses everything else in life. When he was out there, and this is some of the podcasts kind of fill in, when he was talking about being out there, and, he had this imagination of his wife. He had this imagination of coming home to her in open arms and wild sex and all these things. Like, it was all right there, because at the depth of his despair, at the reality that he could die at any day, those thoughts of happiness and those thoughts of dreams that he had kept him going, along with the fact that he was tightening these relationships with his brothers, the guys he was there with. He was a reporter observing a military unit. So he comes home and he's like trying to explain to her the depth of these relationships, the way that you feel when you're that connected to somebody. And all of his imagination, all of his dreams about her didn't come true. Like, she was very concerned when he got home. She was not very physical when he got home. She needed to reestablish connection and all these things. And eventually the relationship dwindled. But he said, even in the dwindling, I realized that I had never been as close to my wife as I was these men. And not like, that is a very challenging thing for men to hear, because we're always told the lone wolf story, the guy that goes out and just runs it over. Dude, I tried to be that guy. I tried to be the person who didn't need help, who would stick a middle finger in anybody's face that thought that they were better than me or above me or could tell me what to do. And all it did was break me down emotionally, physically, and I would come back harder. I would come back more aggressive. I would come back, because that's what they say, right? You don't ever quit. You don't ever stop pushing. You don't ever stop fighting. Well, where are you located at right now?
Montana, Billings.
All right, so you're in Montana. Well, if I tell you to walk to Washington State and you start walking the direction of Maine, you can get a long damn way in the wrong direction just by going hard, right? You've got to go hard, but you've got to go smart. And what I learned was that alone, I couldn't do it. I wasn't smart enough to see the pitfalls. I wasn't smart enough to quiet that voice that says, shut up and listen, instead of shut them up and make them hear. You know, that's who I was. I was so aggressive, because in my powerlifting, in my athletics, that worked. You just go harder, you get better. You push more, you do more reps, you do more sets, and you get better. But as a man, that is very destructive for me, to go so hard on my own convictions, ignoring the facts, the things around me that would help me get further. That is very detrimental to me. So, like having Bert, like having those people that opened up their stories and their lives really to me through different communities and different settings through Sorinex, I started to realize that, man, things are a lot easier to build when there's more than two hands, when there's more than one idea. Things get done faster. So just by this natural, organic kind of evolution, one, I had a career-ending injury in powerlifting that made me realize I wasn't invincible. I did a lot of like soul searching, trying to figure out who I was, trying to put my life back together that I'd blown apart for a sport. You know, that when you're talking about a sport that is a hobby that has like minimal payouts, it's kind of weird to dedicate your life to something that has $1,000 championship trophy or something like that. But nevertheless, it got better in time. And but you know, through my injury, through questioning my own existence, did I want to live? Did I want to live the way that I was living? Who do I want to become? Who am I? You know, I started to find like books like Tribe, and I started to understand that in every scenario where I thought I could do it myself, I might have gotten there somehow, but when I would look around behind me, none of it was by myself. There was always help. There was always somebody there, and probably willing to give more than I was willing to accept. But that was me being like, I have to be the man. I have to do this a certain way. And really, my life only got better when I started kind of like leveling myself with other people and just hearing their ideas, hearing their perspectives, hearing their journey, hearing their, you know, their own stories, and trying to learn from those. You know, my dad, it's one of those old sayings, you know, when you're 16, your dad's the dumbest man you ever met. And when he's 35, he's the smartest man you ever knew. Yeah. And that's the thing, dude, because like I look back at my life, my dad never once gave me the wrong advice. Not one single time. But I was the kind of person that would take his advice and see if I could beat it or outperform it or outdo it or whatever. Or, you don't know my life, Dad. Like, whatever. It's just, I think that is one of the things that plagued me, was that lone wolf, you know, hard charger mentality, when it's like, you don't really have to work extra hard when you're doing the right things. You just have to work hard enough to get those things done in the way that they should be done. You don't have to do 1,500 things because you know where you're going. You know the direction that you're going. And if you need help, guess what? Man, I'm stuck on this problem. I got to get an order out for something. Do you know anybody that does ordering like this time of day or can get it out by this time? Heck yeah, man. I got 3 names. I'll send them to you. I would have searched the internet for hours trying to get that solution on a 2-minute phone call. So expanding myself into a community of people that are looking out for a company or looking out for an idea, kind of like the Be Legendary mantra of Sornex, the Derek Woodskis, the Bert Sorens, the Brady Cervantes, the Terry Hewins, all these guys that are people that have found Sornex in their own way, but they're just good people. And that has helped me tremendously to have that community, to follow their footsteps and in some cases lead their footsteps, but it's always, always reciprocal and it's ongoing.
My old man used to tell me when I was a kid, he said, when I grow up, I hope that I'm as smart as you one day. That's what he used to tell me. And now, Brandon, I call my dad twice a day, asking him, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Like, I want his opinion. I need his advice. I need his guidance because he's been there and he's fucking done that. But as a young kid, you think you got it all figured out, and you sure as hell don't.
Yeah, well, my dad, he's a complex figure in my life because he's a super, super phenomenal human. Like, never smoked, and this doesn't make him good or bad. I'm just saying, like, the type of character he is. Never smoked a cigarette. Never had a drink of alcohol in his life. As far as I know, he is honest to his own detriment. Like, he would cut his own throat to tell the truth. You know what I mean? Like, one of those guys. And that's admirable. But when I was a kid, I watched him make sacrifices by just doing the right thing over and over and over again. Like, he sacrificed himself. He sacrificed, probably earnings for the family and whatnot. And when you're a kid, you think, man, if he would just do this, or if he would just try, well, then you go through your life and you make mistakes and you hurt people or you hurt yourself and you have all these wrong decisions. And I can look at my dad, honest to God, and tell you, I don't think he's ever put his head down at night with a head full of guilt. Oh, other than how he raised his boys. You know what I mean? Like, not, I think every parent has that concern, but like, for who he was and the choices he made, he probably has a pretty clean conscience. And that, to me, is just something that I wish I had paid more attention to. Like, his attention to detail, his consideration for things, because, I'd ask him for something, can I have $10? Well, what are you going to do with the $10? Well, I'm going to the arcade. Well, what games are you going to play? Well, I don't know, and I'll know when I get there. But it was like, he was just that methodical, he's still alive. He is that methodical type of thinker, and he sees things very black and white. There's no gray whatsoever in that man. And that was challenging for me because I like to see all the facets of things. I like to see how I can relate to you in Montana, or how I can relate to a homeless person that's sitting out here begging on the street. Like, I enjoy figuring out those connections and learning about people. And it's like, this is just a guy that got sick, got fired, stayed sick, had to go to the hospital, couldn't work, and now he's homeless. Like, rewind 5-6 years ago, he's driving a Toyota Tacoma to work. He's wearing, khakis and a polo. Life's hard. He's not just some homeless bum. He's a dude, that just had a hard break. So, like, trying to understand people at their level, trying to understand how we're connected, trying to understand how we can be similar, even amongst our differences. Those are things that I need to do better on and have done better on. But those lessons were always there. Like, the people in my life showed me that kind of way. Like, being brought up in a Christian based home, that was kind of the way. You treat people how you want to be treated. Everybody's a human being, that kind of thing. So, yeah, dude, I've had so many opportunities to be smarter and better than I am, and I thought I could fix the game myself. I thought I could do it all on my own, and it sure took a lot of breaking me down to get to a point where I realized I didn't just need those things. I really want those things. Like, I want to be a better person. I want to have a better life. I want to help people. So through all the help of me, it was time to start paying things forward as best I could.
You have to be receptive to those types of things too, right? Because a lot of the times they're right in front of you. And you talked about the lone wolf thing, and man, I've had many instances, even over the past couple of years, where it's like I've tried that and it just hasn't panned out for me. So I put
Mm-hmm.
myself in the same situation a year later, and I'm like, hey, I want to do this. I'm talking about an ultra marathon event.
Yeah,
Literally,
yeah.
I went into it, and it was like a last man standing. Long story short, I didn't talk to anybody. I've told this story on here before, but I didn't talk to anybody. I had my head down. I was just grinding, and that wasn't good for me because
Mm-hmm.
there's a bunch of people out there that are also suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And hell, man, you know this as well as probably anybody. I'd rather suffer with multiple people because it takes your mind off the situation that you're in. So the
Mm-hmm.
next year I came back and I made it a point to talk to the athletes, um, you know, cheer people on, try to be there for others, uplift them. But a lot of that's ego too, right? Like you want
Oh
to
yeah.
take on this lone wolf thing and be like, I'm the man. Yeah, I got this. Well, do you? Do
Yeah.
you? You can only go so far by yourself, and the people that you surround yourself with, and just conversations that you can have. I like to call it in the pit with others can really. I mean, you guys can accomplish a lot together, and
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I'm always working on. I'm almost 30. And my wife helps me out with it too. She's like, "You gotta check your ego, Tyler. You gotta check your ego." And I'm like, "You're right, I do."
It'll
And
break more. Believe me. At
yeah,
30, I was a tyrant. Like I was terrible.
yeah.
It's gonna get better no matter what though.
I'm hoping so, man. That's why I love doing this show. Is just talking to like-minded folks like yourself because I'm just trying to learn, and it's nice to hear these ideas and words come out of somebody else's mouth opposed to mine sometimes. So thank you for that.
Well, the thing that's interesting to me is I guess you could hear that. Like you could hear the last exchange we just had and hear that, everybody needs a team. Well, my team is not on my staff. My team of people in my life, and it's a very small number, 3, 4, 5 people that they get a phone call when I need advice. They get a phone call when I've hit a block in the wall, like when I don't know what to do next kind of thing. But also, we don't work together. I mean, Bert and I work together, but the others, it's like they each have their own mission. They each have their own objectives. They're out there doing their own shit. So in that direction, they are kind of lone wolfing it, if you want to call it that.
Hmm.
But when you look underneath them, like Bert has employees that help. You know, my buddy Terry has employees that help. So it's not exactly that lone wolf single individual. It's just a lone wolf endeavor that comes back to our circle, and it's like, well, have you guys seen the trends in this market? Have you guys seen the trends in this market or whatever? But they help, and that doesn't have to be like we're all out here fighting the same exact enemy or the same exact battles in our businesses. It's the similarities of those businesses that make that group valuable. And what I think you'll find too as you get older, and I'm still learning this, is you've got to have that centralized friend group that is purely, I say, stab you to the front. Shitty friends stab you to the back. Your real friends will stab you to the front. They'll tell you the truth. They'll tell you the hard things. And you always got to have that group. But what I couldn't do and what I didn't understand in business for a long time is those, peripheral groups. I'm a person that wants to, if I give you my time, I'm invested. Like I think, okay, this person needs to go from like a business person to a friend. That was my structure for years. I was like, oh, we get along great. We hang out at these events, but we really weren't friends. And that was something that was a challenge for me to understand was like, look, dog, they're just trying to get their nut. And this is, you're helping them facilitate that in some way. Hey, when we're at this thing, doing this thing, we're best of friends. We're best of friends. But when we walk out of here, we just stay in touch until the next one. And when I grasped that not everybody was going to look at me the same way that I looked at them, they were not going to value relationships the way that I valued relationships. So I just started giving myself kind of like parameters for people. Like when I'm at an event, I only email certain people in a certain way. Like I don't give them my phone number. I just stick it to email. And then if they prove themselves as like, oh, they're a valuable asset or they're a good friend or it evolves into something more, it's like, okay, now let's get a text chain going. And then it's like, let's get a phone call. And then it's something else. But it's like I have learned to guard myself and allow people in stages rather than like, here's the whole pie, because every time I give so much so early, whether that's interpersonally or business or whatever, you're giving them your hand. You're giving them everything that they need to know about you without protecting yourself. So I just keep things situational as far as my business expansion and my friend groups. They stay very, very tight, very, very hard to get in, very, very easy to get out. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take very, very long to undo a lot of trust. So if somebody will burn me or use me or whatever one time, I'm at this point in my life, I'm old enough to know better. They should be too. So whether it's business, relationship, whatever, you have to take care of yourself and you have to have those hard lines, but you got to let the right people in. And once they're in there, protect that. Like, I don't want to disvalue Bert. I don't want to disvalue Brady or anybody in my life that has been an essential part of that growth for myself, business, or whatever. I'm not going to alienate those people to the best of my ability anyway.
You're setting boundaries in a sense.
You have to. I mean, it's like, I heard a guy talking about it. He was like, only you got to use the front yard model, okay? You have those people in your life that when they drive by or they walk by the front door and they're on the sidewalk, hey, John, how you doing? Nice to see you. Well, then you have that next person who actually opens the gate and comes in and throws football with you, or, you pitch baseball to each other's kids or whatever. But it's like, they don't come on the porch for lemonade. They just stay in the front yard. Then you got the porch sitters, the people that you're willing to sit down, have a conversation with, and take some time with, and just sit and either in like pure discussion or just pure observation, you sit. Then there's another layer of people that come into your home and you watch TV or you watch a game. There's another layer of people that come to your kitchen, have food at your dinner table, right? There's only one person that goes to bed with you. Yes. So it's like every single layer, the circle gets smaller. And when you start thinking about it in that terms, like, your spouse, as a man, your woman, is the only person that goes to bed with you. That's a commitment. The only people that break bread with you and sit at your table are either blood or hard-earned family, right? Your buddies, the ones, your bros, they come over and they watch the game. Your boss or, some kid's coach at the rec league, they might sit on your front porch with you because they're in your life. They're helping you out, but they're not really that close. They're peripheral. Front yard, heck, that's just because you live close to somebody and you got kids. And you want to teach help them play baseball or throw football or whatever. Casual neighbors, you're not wasting your time. You're just saying, hey, I'm just being nice. But every layer has to get more protected. And nobody can cross that line without my say-so.
Man, that is one of the best 5 minutes exchanges this podcast has ever had, man. I love that because I try to talk about that, but I'm not very – you articulated it way better. I like how there's layers to it. And I really enjoyed how you explained that. It's so huge, man. That is excellent.
Thank you. And like I said, that was passed on to me, like so many things, just by talking to people. It was a random old man talked about it. So many lessons in my life had just been because I literally made a post about it on Instagram a while back. The most opportunity that has ever come to me in my life has come on the heels of just asking people how they're doing, and meaning it, like,
and actually meaning it, correct?
And like, I don't know what it is, and I've talked about it before, but people talk to me, and I don't know if it's because I talk so much and I give a lot in conversation, or I encourage a lot of conversation. But man, when I see people say, "How are you doing?" and I hear the good, or like, "Oh, I'm great," or "I'm good," I'm going to get that person aside and say, "Hey man, how you doing really? Like, what's going on with you?" And dude, it just comes. Like, I don't have to ask a second question. It just comes. And I think it comes for me from knowing how many times I wanted somebody to mean it. And I never felt that when I was in need, So I don't necessarily always have the answers, but one thing I do credit myself for is I always ask better questions. And I think if you get 100 questions, you'll get 5 pretty good answers out of that. And if you can take 5 good answers out of 100 questions, you can take 1 perfect step. If you're stuck, if you don't know what to do, exhaust yourself examining, asking prying for what's next, you'll find a few answers, but only one of them is going to be the perfect next step. Now you've got 5 options instead of 100. Much, much better odds. So keep asking yourself, keep challenging yourself, and do that for your people. Do that for everyone in your life. And that's one of the hardest things, but that's what I said. It's hard in, but easy out. If you just keep raising the standard of yourself, you're going to leave most of your friends behind. You know, most people are on a deceleration at this point. They're 40 years old. They got a little money in the bank. They got kids that are about raised now. A lot of people start hitting the afterburner and just kind of cruising off. For me, I'm trying to go as hard as I can go in the right ways. You know, I'm not talking about doing some crazy physical endurance event. I'm talking about, like, if that makes sense for me and I train for it, perfect. But I got to believe in it first. For my job, I'm not going to make a t-shirt, or I'm not going to come up with a product that I'm like, yeah, this is going to make a lot of money, but I don't believe in it. You know what I mean? I am trying to tie myself to authentic people, authentic business, authentic outlets, everything that I can do. I am just trying to find people that inspire me with themselves, with their art, with their product, with it, whatever it can be. And somehow that just keeps propelling me forward for myself, because maybe that's a new book to read, or maybe that's you see an artist and they expose you to a new type of medium. It opens a whole different door. I mean, it's just like for me going from compound to recurve. I knew what a recurve bow was, but not until I tried it did I feel like, holy crap, this is the thing for me. So if you stop opening doors, you're just going to remain the same kind of person that you've always been. But if you're always curious and you're always excited to go try things, you're going to find a lot of stuff to keep you interested, keep your mind active, keep your body active. And to me, I know I'm all over the place, but like, to me, that's the fundamental part of health. Like, if you think the best thing that you can do is sit your fat ass on a couch, put on a television show, and experience other people's lives through reality TV, like, what are you doing with yourself? If you actually go about your day and you see something, you're like, man, that's interesting. I want to see what that is. And you just go over there. Well, maybe you see a different angle on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. That's me. I don't think I've ever grown up. I've just continued to be like a 15-year-old kid, you know, that like has some sense about him, but just stays curious to everything around him. I don't know.
No, it's absolutely.
I just rambling my ass off.
No, it's perfect, dude. That's how I want this to be, and I see it, man, because I've outgrown a lot of my friends, and a lot of them don't understand it. You know, you get together with somebody that you see over a holiday break, you go back home. I'm from Michigan. I go back home, and I see people that I went to school with or played sports with, and, hey, how you doing? Oh, good, just working. Hey, you remember when we did this back in the day? And it's like, yeah, but what are you doing now?
Right.
Like that. Those stories were cool and shit, but like, what are you doing now? What are you doing now to get better? And along with that, I see a lot of people that are comfortable. Right, like I'm 29, so my friends are right around 30. A lot of them, they're starting to have kids now. They're getting married. Everybody's getting comfortable. They're not in good shape anymore. They're gaining weight.
Yeah,
the same old job. They're not making any strides. They're not surrounding themselves. They're not trying to elevate. Where do you think that sense of comfortability comes? Because for me, Brandon, it's like there's no end to this, right? Like, I want the next podcast to be better than this one, if that makes sense. No disrespect, but you know what I mean. Like, I'm always trying to grow and make it better than the last time I tried something. Where do you think that these people just they get comfortable and they can't get out of that rut? I'm sure you see it too.
Well, dude, I lived it. I mean, I think if any person is honest with themselves, they are at some level 1% to 100 of being a scale of everything that they hate, just as we are everything that we love. Like, humans only have a limited, you can talk about there's unlimited possibilities. Humans, I've been around the world a few times, like literally around the world. I've been from top to bottom, east to west. I see the same archetypes over and over and over and over. So to me, there's a very limited spectrum of what human beings can be. Like, you find the outlier, you find the one like the Alex Honnold, that somebody like that. But the brunt of human existence is really dwindled down to a spectrum. You know, there's only somebody who's jumped the highest. There's only somebody who's ran the fastest. There's only somebody who's done this or done that at the highest level. So that is 100%. It gets no higher for human than that. So we have a spectrum of what human possibility can be, and it's ever growing. But as of today, there are limits. We know those limits. We understand those limits. So a human being can only be so many iterations of a thing. And I think when people, you look at life as this mountain, and it's monumental. It's so hard. It's so difficult at times. And just when you get your footing, the rock slips out from underneath and you fall back. And I think a lot of people are in that stage right now. You know, I lost my mind in 2008 when the economy had a big recession there. I lost my job, literally lost everything in my life. And in 2008 into 2009, those were some of the hardest years of my life because I had been comfortable. You know, I had been to a point where I was making six figures, had a new home, had a new car in the driveway, new baby. Everything looked like the American dream. It looked like the Norman Rockwell painting, right? Mm-hmm. But the reality was that was on someone else's footing. That was on the economy. That was on the stability of society because I worked in sales. I worked in an industry that was dependent upon consumerism. So nevertheless, when that happened, my whole world falls apart. And then it was back into that hunger mode. It was back into like survival mode because I alienated myself from everyone, completely everyone. Went a totally different path, went very, very dark, started selling drugs, started doing all kinds of stuff just to get by. But I remember not that I liked what I was doing, but I liked that feeling of, man, I have to get after it. I really have to get after it. And that's something I always connected with as an athlete. But in those few years when I'd kind of gotten into corporate America, that was gone. Like I knew if I went to work, I was getting paid. I knew exactly what I was going to get paid. I knew that it was going to be enough to afford the things that I wanted to do, to travel to the places I wanted to go. What's my motivation to go in there and kick fucking doors down? Like if I know that as soon as I wake up and piss in the toilet in the morning, I'm going to make this much money. I'm going to be able to do this many things. And if I'm satisfied with that, I can do that forever. Mm-hmm. But if you tell me, and I'm not talking commission. I'm not talking about more money, the dangling carrot. I'm talking about like, hey man, if you come into work and we crush this, we're going to build something. We're going to make this more than what it is. It's going to become more. That's a different kind of thing when you're invested like that. And I think that a lot of people are the type of person that would go in and kick doors down if they were hungry. Yeah. But man, we're fat. Yeah. We're well fed at the very least. You know, all the things that you want, whether it's food, liquor, or pussy, are 5 miles from you right now. Maybe not in Montana, but most places you are 5 minutes from every vice that you can imagine. Yes. Dude, I'm sitting right now at my house 4 miles from a drug hub epicenter. It's exactly to the mile between Detroit and Atlanta. Okay? Exact difference. Drug, whore. It's strippers and drugs 4 minutes away. Okay? Yep. Alcohol in the shop right next to it. You can't get to the top of the mountain in 4 minutes. You can't sail around the world in 4 minutes. You can't win a championship in 4 minutes. You can't do things that take time and are, yeah, all that shit may feel good short term because it's close and it's easy and it's going to take away something right now, but it never has ever eclipsed the feeling of earning something. And I think that a lot of people are confusing what they're getting with earning something. Yes, I gave my time to a job and I got a paycheck. Did you earn that paycheck? Did you bust your ass for 40 hours? Did you do everything you possibly could to make that company better? Problem is, they can do that and they won't get reciprocated in value. So what happens is you take those good type people that go in and they want to kick doors down, they want to kick teeth in, and they want to do the job that they're destined to do, but they get the same thing if they do half the work. Yes. And then half the work becomes half of that, and then half of that becomes half of that, and the next thing you know, you got a disgruntled employee that doesn't want to go to work anymore. They've got the house, they've got the wife, they've got the kids, they got everything that they should have. They got everything that they were told they should have. And they get up and they dread their job. The one thing that allows them to have all that because they don't have a purpose. They've gotten a comfortable position in their life and they traded it for a purpose. And I'm not saying that everybody that goes to a 9 to 5 is doing that. I have to have things outside of my 9 to 5 to have that purpose. I have to have, individual strives that keep me going and push me forward, because without that, I am a dead individual. I know that. I spent 3 years wallowing, circling the drain, trying to figure myself out after my injury ended powerlifting for me. I was a nobody, So it was like, for 3 years, just kind of lived in that place where I'm okay. I'm not getting better, but I'm not getting any worse. And culminated just wanting to fucking kill myself. And the reality was I didn't want to die. I just didn't want to live like that. So for me, having that realization that I am better suited for this life when I am a go-getter, when I am curious, when I keep pushing, when I find my way, even through failure. If I know where I want to be, I'll get there. Just takes me a lot longer than some people, but I will get there. And that's what you have to look at. For a long time, I got kind of off track of being money focused. I think before I was so money focused and I saw that as a problem, I became I want to succeed outside of money. Well, now it's coming back around that, okay, to have the life I want, to retire when I want, to do the things that I want, I have to build this back up. So, dude, the easiest thing in the world, again, how there's a spectrum of what humanity is. There's a spectrum of how people earn money, and $1 million to an individual is phenomenal money. It's phenomenal money to any single person, $1 million. How many people make $1 million every day? I mean, new millionaires. Mm-hmm. How many people become millionaires every year? How many of those stories are told from the fact that a year ago I couldn't rub two nickels together? So there is a process. There's a systematic process to anything that you want in this life, especially if you're an American citizen. I don't care if you work at McDonald's right now. If you want to go to college, McDonald's has got a program that will help you go to college. If you want to become a doctor that works at McDonald's right now, there's a program that will get you into college, that will help you get into your master's program, that will get you into your medical school, that will make you become a doctor. It's going to take a long time. It's going to be hard, and it may not ever be easy, but you can do that. And that's what people have not been told enough in this country, outside of the little pat on the back in kindergarten, you can be whatever you want. Well, yeah, but look at these kids now that think they're special and think that they can get whatever they want or become whatever they want because mommy and daddy have coddled them and wiped their ass till they're 25. It's not going to happen. We have got to start telling people that you can do anything that you want, but it is going to be brutal to get there, and start training people to understand that when something bad happens, you don't have to go into a depressive state. You don't have to go into a full tilt collapse and just sit on the couch and wallow in it. Yeah, you can feel sad, but is feeling sad going to get you out of this? No. What is going to get you out of it? Action. And sadness starts to retreat when you're taking action towards fixing your sadness. If you sit there and wallow in it, what's going to make it better? Every song you hear is going to keep you sad. Every movie is going to make you sad. It's going to, whatever it is. You have to take action. And I don't know if this is true or not, so I'm just bullshitting and rolling. But I was told at one point that depression, like so many things in our body, the cue is it makes you feel terrible. It puts you down on the bed or on the couch so that you feel so bad that you're like, I don't want to sit on this couch anymore. I've got to get up and go do something. Yes. But we have things that keep us locked to the couch. We got the TV, we got the phone, we got the warm, comfy blanket, we got the Doritos 3 feet away. Those things prolong our depression. If you are feeling absolutely fucking terrible, I don't care how bad you feel, I don't care what happened, if you go for a drive, a 1 hour drive, in silence, windows down, find a place, sit, walk, think, do something, you will feel better than you would if you sat on that couch and watched another fucking Keeping Up with the Kardashians or whatever. It drives me crazy, the fact that people check themselves out of their lives. And some of that comes from having done it myself. It's once I've been there, I see that I can get out. So it makes me want to help other people get out of their own way, figure out that there's better ways to live this life than just having a little money in your pocket and being a fat fuck piece of shit. That's the way I feel about it. I see so many people that become versions of themselves because they do have a little bit of money and they just stop being the thing that got them the money. if that makes sense. I would much rather look at somebody that I see busting their ass that's flat broke. I have a different kind of respect for those people, just people that work really hard, because sometimes the payoff isn't right now. Sometimes the payoff is years and years down the line. I don't know. I feel like I've rambled my ass off this whole episode, but I've had so many things going on in my head recently that it's just good to get some of it out.
No, this is perfect. That's why we're doing this, man. I want to dive a little bit deeper into getting out of that rut, because it sounded like, you were a fucking elite power lifter. I mean, we're over 1,000 pounds on the squat, 832 pounds for bench, 804 pounds for dead. I mean, elite level numbers. And then you get an injury. What happened? What kind of injury did you get?
So I was competing in LA at the Staples Center, and on a squat that I went down, I had squatted it, dozens of, if not hundreds of times in training, and actually squatted it the attempt before, but I got a penalty. I got a red light, and I had to take it again. So as I'm walking up, I'd changed my shoes because it was heavy on the second attempt, and I was like, I'm done. I just don't feel good. Well, when they called my name, I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to bitch out on this. Like, they called my name, so now I look like a bitch if I don't go. So I had already changed my shoes. And this is kind of tells you where I was. I was so checked out of it. I had missed the lift, so I was kind of pissed off about that. The floor was a little bit uneven, which I was pissed off about that, to the point that I changed my shoes. I was dealing with a little bit of a groin injury. So I go back out there, and I'm like, all right, last one was kind of hard. Widen your stance a little bit. Utilize the shoes that you changed to. I was a professional. Like, I knew all of these things were going to make the lift different, so I accommodated. As soon as I go down, one of the things that I did was open my stance a little bit, because I had on Olympic shoes at first, and I switched to the Chuck Taylor, more of a West Side style. So I went in the Chuck Taylors, I opened my stance up, and I started sitting back and opening my legs. Well, that aggravated the groin injury. Yep. Left knee rotates in, spirals, every single thing. Right knee was quad tendon and patella tendon, and that was one of the things that they commented. It was like, I don't know how you tore opposing tendons, but they're both torn. And then on the left one, it was literally like you took a chicken drumstick and just spiral twisted everything. My kneecap was actually still connected to the quad tendon, and had, if you could imagine looking like on a bent knee, if you took your fingers and came up about 5 inches to the up toward the quad tendon, and then out 2.5 inches to the outside of the leg, that's where my kneecap was after the injury. So it retracted and folded out. When I got to the hospital, they thought I'd been in like a head-on collision, the way that my knees were. So long story short, over the course of 4 years, I had 19 surgeries on my knee. Most of that dominantly for infection. And there were multiple times where there were threats to my life because of the infection. There were threats to the leg. They were talking about taking my leg. And, you'd imagine the day that I fell with that, I was off of 2 world championship competitions. I was coming into this meet somewhat feeling pressured to do it. I'm a grown man. I made the decision to go. But sponsorship pressure, federation pressure, being in LA and being a guy that had only competed out there a few times, this was a big opportunity for me on a business front. So, everything kind of just swirled around the fact that I was mad at myself. I was mad at the sport. I was mad at people involved. And through the course of the years, I just got further and further removed from the sport. I kept trying to come back to it, but it was like a false version of myself. I wasn't as strong. I didn't have any momentum. I didn't have the rhythm that I had been in. And it was starting to feel like the Buffalo Bill Wild West show, where it's like they wheel the old man out and he tells his old stories and everybody claps out of like sympathy rather than excitement. And that's kind of what it felt like to me. So I started going on to like the announcing side of things. I was announcing some meets. It didn't put pressure on me to lift. It allowed me to actually enjoy it. And actually, it was right around that time that it just went really, really bad for me. Like, things in my personal life blew apart. I was looking at every sponsor that I had essentially left but a couple. Some the same day as my injury, like the same day. And so long story short, just kind of battle with those demons and up and down. And every single time I had a surgery, I was on a couch for 4 weeks. And that was the hardest, because be on the couch for 4 weeks, I would get my clearance for, okay, you can start physical therapy or whatever. Maybe 2 days after that, I'd have another infection. So it's like 8 weeks on my back in a row. And when you look at it, the math, it's 76 weeks on my back out of 4 years. And I think the average person that followed along, I was unwilling to show how like desperate and low I was at times, always trying to show myself like I'm still training, guys, or I'm eating this meal, or I'm doing this. And that made it even worse, because the perception was, this guy's coming back. This guy is figuring it out. And over here, I'm weaker than ever. I'm less than ever, as far as I'm concerned in my head. So April 12th of 2016 just seemed like a good morning that I didn't want to live anymore. And literally went through the process of how this was going to happen, what I was going to do, the things that I felt. And I just kept coming back to the point that, while I was sad and I was really, really like in a bad place, I didn't actually think that I wanted to die. You know what I mean? Like there might have been just enough ego left to save my life, but I didn't want to die. I did not want to live the way that I'd been living. I didn't want to live kind of beholden to a sport that I cared so much about that, it's yesterday's news. We're 3-4 years later and you're a nobody now. And I think for someone who felt like a somebody at a significant level for the first time in their life in the sport, to have that kind of taken away from you, it made you feel like, well, man, I am a nobody again. So that was kind of, that was some of the ups and downs and the battles of it, was just trying to keep going. But that was such a clear distinction for me that not wanting to live is very different than not wanting to live how you are. And I had put myself in every situation that put me in that place, whether it was the injury itself because I agreed to something I didn't want to do, or it was the series of choices after that basically saw me push everyone away to where I was isolated. So yeah, you can sit there and tell yourself, man, I got hurt and like nobody in the sport loves me, or nobody in my family loves me, or nobody wants me. I pushed all those motherfuckers away. It's like when you're the guilty party, like sometimes you have to start wearing that hat. And it helped me to call my dad and just tell him where I was at, like I needed some help. And the greatest thing he said to me was 2 things. 1, I want to say I'm sorry, and 2, I want to say I love you. And like those were difficult things for my dad to say in my life previous, because it was just more one of those inferred kind of like tough love, like, you got a roof over your head and food on the table, like we love you, you're welcome, kind of thing. But it was a different version of my dad in that moment. Like, I think he saw, I have a son, and I think about it all the time. It's like, I can't imagine seeing him in the light that I was seeing. You know what I mean? Like, seeing this child that you love and you care about and seeing them essentially broken. Like, that's one of the regrets of my life, is that my dad saw me at that point. But one of the greatest things about my life was that my dad was there at that point. Excuse me for getting emotional about it, but it's such a heavy thing for me, because I was like, if my dad, who I never would have thought said those words, can come in here and say those words, what am I capable of saying? And that kind of started out a series of, I would reach out to people that maybe I felt like I'd wronged or I'd hurt or whatever. And it was emails and text messages and phone calls, all of these things to say, I'm sorry, to say like, hey, I really wish I'd been a better friend, or I wish I'd been a better man, or I wish I'd have done this. And a lot of it was just ignored. A lot of it was go fuck yourself. And some of it was like, I'm really glad to hear from you. I hope this is genuine, and I hope you can kind of find your way. And man, it just, all that guilt that I was feeling from those things for years, and you run through your head 1,000 times when you're sitting on the couch depressed, they were gone. Like, I just faced them down. I just went to the people and I said, hey, look, this is what happened. This was my take on it. This is where I was wrong, and I'm really, really sorry. And, I can't fix it, can't take it back, but I want you to know that I've thought about it long and hard. I see where you were right, where I made mistakes. I'm sorry. And that was it. And like, I started to realize that about so many other feelings in my life, that they're only as big as we make them. They're the monster under the bed, really. Like, until you address them, like, do you know how hard it was to say sorry to some of those people? And like, it wasn't hard at all. It was just fucking writing a thing down or texting a thing or making the phone call and saying, hey, got to talk to you a minute. I know you didn't expect to hear from me, but I need to say I'm sorry. And dude, it's 2 words, it's two breaths, and we make so much out of it. And I'm far from perfect still, but I have those lessons kind of emblazed in my head, and the things that when I start to feel guilt or stress or any of those things, more thinking is not going to fix it. Action will fix it. So if I'm stressed about something, what is the next best step for me? If I'm sad about something, what is the next best step? If it's business, what is the next best step? If it's friendships, what is the next best step? And that's where the +1 mentality kind of came from for me, was the fact that when I was at my very, very lowest moment, I looked at my life and I was thinking about, like, nobody wakes up to be a heroin addict one day. They don't just wake up and they're like, man, heroin sounds awesome. I've got this great wife and this great job and these beautiful kids. Let's go shoot some heroin. It doesn't work that way. So when I was looking at my life, I was like, how did I get here? Like, how did I get to this place where I don't even recognize who I am? And it's 1,000 bad choices, right? That was just kind of what came to my head, 1,000 bad choices. And I was like, if each one of those choices was a shovelful, well, I've dug a pretty deep hole. How long is it going to take me to get out? It's going to take 1,001 good choices. So every single thing became a choice for me. How I greeted people, if I held a door for an old lady or I let it swing on her and not hit her in the face, but just close on her, I'm going to hold the door. If I see somebody walking towards me and I can be silent, or I can ask, how are you doing? Or I can just give a nod, have a good day, I'm going to do that. Every time that I look at a television show, it's like, oh, I can watch, something for an escape, or I can learn something. I'm going to learn something today. Maybe tomorrow I'll need the escape, but today I'm going to learn something. But actually having the conscious awareness about every decision that I made, because I was so afraid of making bad decisions because I had made so many without being conscious of them. It's like you get in the car and that's all fine, but it's where they park that's the problem. So getting in the car was the bad choice, even though you didn't know where you were going. That's still a bad choice. Why do you get in a car you don't know where you're going? So that was my life. I was making all these choices in the moment that were like that moving car, and then we parked in the wrong place. So what I was doing didn't feel bad, look bad, or sound bad, but it always ended up bad. You know what I mean? And I was like, I've got to do things knowing that they're going to end up good. So I wanted to start thinking about 3 things. If I can do this in a day, I'm going to be better than I was yesterday, no matter what. I'm going to give 5 things that I am thankful for from yesterday. Like small things. Like this morning, had a guy wave at me at the crosswalk for letting him go. Like I let him go ahead. And he waved at me and he said, hey man, I hope you have a great day. Like tomorrow, that's going to be on my list. Those small, insignificant things. Because if you can remember 5 insignificantly good things about your day, to get to the 5 smallest ones, you're going to go through 25 or 30 big ones, because that's what I try to do. I make a game out of it. What is the smallest 5 things that I'm thankful for yesterday? And you'll go through all the good stuff, all the big stuff, getting there. Number 2, I try to learn something every single day, whether it's watching a YouTube video, which is infinite, whether it's reading an article, observing a professional, or talking to a master. I am trying to learn something at a very high level every single day. I don't try to just start things. I try to delve in deep and then work my way back to a starting point if I'm interested enough. Number 3, try to help a stranger. Every single day I try to help a stranger in some way. It's not giving them a bunch of money or whatever, but you know what? It's like hitting the shop and the guy gave me a cookie with my sandwich. Well, I don't need the cookie, and there's a homeless guy sitting right here. Have the cookie, man. Hope you're doing well. Walk over here, Dollar General. I'm walking in, see an old lady with her walker. Hey, let me take your cart. I'll help the door, and then you can get on this motorized cart, and you don't have to worry about this buggy anymore. Thank you so much, sir. And it's like, That's just decency. But it's me consciously trying to be aware of my surroundings so that I can help every little person or every little thing in a way that I can. I just want to have a positive impact wherever I'm at. Whether it's saying hello, how you doing, holding doors, smiling. You know, I'm a big, tattooed, intimidating looking guy. I can't tell you the conversations I've had with especially elderly people by being kind, and they'll say, I never would have expected that from you. And like, good. Like that's what I'm going for, is to be unexpectedly good.
And you never know what people are going through. That's cliche to say because people say it all the time, but something as simple as one of those three things, especially the third one, trying to help a stranger, that
Mm-hmm.
could completely turn somebody's day around, if not just their whole outlook on life. You
I've seen
know?
it, man. I've literally one of the strangest, most intense situations I ever had in my life was asking someone how they were doing, and that turned into 24 hours in a car with them, as they basically. I mean, it was a full blown. It was a meltdown that I was not certified to help in. I'll put it that way. But I was there and I watched and I listened, and at the end of it, from that day, this person, the the things that this person have achieved would sound like lies if I told you. I mean, they have crested every single thing that they've put in front of them since then, and they are crushing life. I'm talking crushing life. But at this point, that 24 hours was a window where they were either going to start crushing their life or they weren't going to have a life. And I saw it firsthand, and that was on the heels of how are you doing?
Yes.
That wasn't like, dude, I know you're really messed up right now. I know you need to talk. Let's go fucking sit somewhere till we figure it out. It was, how are you doing? And from that, all the walls came crashing down. But that is something that I think people are needing. Every single person that I see, and you said it's cliche, but it's real. Everybody, especially right now, more than ever. I mean, I'm seeing small businesses close. I'm seeing prices go up. I'm seeing people trading and selling cars. You know, those things, selling bows, selling guns. Those things don't happen when people are doing good, most of the time. When you start to see an influx of those things, people are starting to struggle financially, which means it's going to put strains on relationships, which means kids are going to see some tough stuff with mommy and daddy yelling and fighting about things. It's like, this is a very pivotal point in time, I think, for this nation and for us individually. And as an individual, all I can control is myself. All I can control is what I do with my day. And that's why I personally, just for my own sanity, dedicate to being aware, dedicate to choosing good, and dedicate to doing better than yesterday. That's the only things that I can control. Beyond that, the world's on fire, man.
Yeah, it is. Dude, I have a couple more things here, and I'm going to get you out. This has
Oh,
been
for sure.
absolutely fantastic, but I wanted to say, and you tell me what you think on this, but I don't think men talk like this very often, you know? And you brought up the fact, because I was thinking it, I told Aaron Snyder the same thing last week, but, you know, you're a big guy, full beard, freaking tattoos all over the place, intimidating looking fella.
Mm-hmm.
And you're on here, you know, opening up, saying, you know, hey, I'm sorry to these individuals and having these tough conversations. So if guys like you and I can do this, shit, man, just throw that ego to the side and open up and just talk about it.
Yeah. Well, for me, you know, a lot of the way that I look and the tattoos and stuff, all of my tattoos are pretty dark as far as like they're tied to death from people that I was close to, or they're hard memories or things like that. And a friend of mine is a psychologist, and he asked me one time, he said, did you ever think that you were trying to physically wear your pain to validate it? Like, do you ever think that you were trying to make your pain so literal because you feel it so strongly? Do you think you're ever just trying to paint yourself away in pain? And I was like, holy shit, I no. But when I started looking at my habits of getting tattooed, I would go a year and not get tattooed. I would go through some physical, mental, emotional hardship, and I would get 7 tattoos in 2 months. You know, so it was like, maybe I was, but I didn't, you know, not that I would trade any of my tattoos. I love my tattoos and I'm very thankful for them. But it was like, man, they are tied to pain. This bodysuit is my pain. So I started dedicating a few years ago to only getting things that were positive or good. But nevertheless, that wasn't me thinking, man, I want to put beautiful art on my body. It was me like, no, look at this shit I've survived. Look at this shit I've done. Like, I am a hard individual. I want to be this because I had to believe that I was a bad dude. One, for some of the circles I was running into, some of the rooms I was walking in, and three, in the sport of powerlifting, trying to be the baddest dude. I was a heel. I was an NWO type character in the fact that, like, I was always a little bit loud, a little bit brash, and, it just started to meld into a caricature, I would say, that I started believing in a little bit more than myself. And I think, a lot of guys do that. They may not be the tattoos in a sport, but they start trying to dress a certain way, or they start trying to talk a certain way or act a certain way. And what it really boils down to is they're seeing someone succeed in a way that they want to. They just don't have the confidence to get there themselves yet. I don't believe in the fake it till you make it. I just believe in listen to what your heart says and listen to what your gut says. Because all the times that I have done that, even when I may have paid a price in some way, I did what I believed in. And maybe not just what your gut says, because your gut will tell you that you're hungry and wants fast food, but like, do the things that you believe in and establish enough consideration for what you're doing to build a belief in it. Like, don't just live your life haphazardly. Don't just go through things without a plan. Like I said, don't just start walking saying you're going to Washington when you're actually going the wrong direction. Like, if you had a map, if you had a plan, you will achieve those things much, much quicker. And if you can do those things in a way that maybe not doesn't uplift every person around you, but doesn't diminish anyone else around you, I think you'll get help along the way. There's so many times in my life that just being kind and considerate and attentive, like actually paying attention when someone's talking, the number of doors that have opened for me just from that kind of stuff. And like, not even immediately. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. So I met a guy at Attack in Montana, and ended up needing a ride back to the airport very, very early, like 4 o'clock leave from Big Sky. Well, all the shuttles and everything to the airport are like $400, and I'd called 2 of them. They were booked out, and I'm like, well, crap. And now I'm getting into like the limo service where they're like $600, $700 to the airport. So I go over to the Mountain Tough booth, and I end up talking to one of the guys over there, and I was like, hey, I know you guys are headed back right now. Would you be able to take me? And they were like, we really can't, but I know somebody that's going back in the morning. I'll give you their number. So I get the number, text with this guy, total stranger. And I said, hey, would love to split the costs of a shuttle ride. I understand that you have one coming and it's just you. So do you have room for 2 people, 2 bow cases? And he said, absolutely, I sure do. And I said, well, I'll get you the money in the morning and we'll go from there. He said, absolutely not. I don't need any money. Just happy to do it. So meet at the hotel. We all get in the shuttle and we head out. Along the way, he's just asking me questions about who I am, much like I talk about myself when I meet someone new. I was kind of getting the same thing run on me. And he was like, we'll be in touch. And I was like, great. So right off the plane, I get right off the shuttle, kind of go to the gate, and I thank him via text. So I land, and I get a message, and he's asking me a couple questions about some of my hunting stuff. And he was like, well, I'd love to connect you to this person. Well, that led into a business opportunity. He said, let me introduce you to this other guy. Well, that's turned into a realistic business opportunity. And then so on and so forth. And then down the line, it's like, well, man, I want to help this guy out. Like, he keeps opening doors for me. How can I help him? So now he's got to, on the flip side, where I've kind of connected people with him and so on and so forth. And none of that planned, none of that expected. It just, I wanted to pay back somebody that was helping me, and it's working. And that just kind of full circles this episode, talking about some of the things. You never know where a kind word is going to go, but at least you can walk away feeling good about it. Like, it's hard to feel bad about being good, you know?
It very much is. Dude, I got one more thing because we've That'd probably be a great place to end it, but I do have this written down, and
Okay.
it's in your bio. And we've talked about just the world being a crazy place, but the world being a
Hmm.
dark place. And there's a quote in your bio. It says, if whining and crying were part of the solution, the world would be a perfect place. Can you dive a little bit more into that, please?
Well, I mean, put it very simply, I think most people are just pussies, honestly. I
Done.
don't think, yeah,
Podcast over.
yeah. I mean, like, dude, I mean, you saw, I got emotional right here. It's not crying as in emotional tears. Like, I was speaking about my dad and some tough stuff. Like, that's real.
Yes.
It's the people who are like, they're whining because they don't have something, but they haven't done an equal amount of work to get it. It's thinking because I have, you should too. Well, you will if I deem you worthy of me giving you something, but life is not going to give you anything. You have to go get it. And you see all these people who are just, like I said, you have these people who've just checked out of their lives. They have no purpose. They have no drive. They have no motivation to do anything beneficial for themselves unless it's easy. I think the average person is more expectant than they are deserving by far. We've taught our kids that, you know what, if you cry and whine long enough, we'll give you the chicken nuggets, we'll give you the iPad, we'll give you the DVD player on the back seat of the car. We'll do whatever it takes to keep you happy, because right now your happiness is the only thing that gets mommy and daddy quiet. And I think that builds a system where these kids just demand and demand and demand and demand. And when they don't get what they want, they start crying, they start whining. It's like, oh, I signed up for college and they charge me the money back. Can you believe that? I have to repay student loans? Well, motherfucker, I haven't ever had one of my loans relieved. Not one, because I signed up for it like a man. And I don't care if at 18 years old you didn't know that you were signing up for that. You thought you were going to get your college in exchange. Well, guess what? You may have. You might have dropped out. It might have not been a beneficial major. All of those were your decision. Every single thing from signing that dotting line to picking up a stupid theology diploma in 2023. I mean, like, no disrespect there, but just saying, like, you're not going to make $1 million in theology. It's just one of those things. And then these people just sit and bitch and whine and complain about it. Like, why do I have to fix it for you? Why? Like, I know how hard it is to fix yourself. I'm more mad about you complaining about it now because I do know how hard it is, but I know it's possible. So that's the thing, is I want to try to tell people that you can. There's a way. And if I can't help you, there's somebody that will. Whether it's their YouTube channel, their Instagram page, or them in person. There's so many people putting out good information. And that's the other fact that I'll tell you and leave you with too. If motivation for motivation's sake was the answer, this world will be up doing 4-minute miles every fucking day, because there's enough motivation out there on the internet to make anyone sick of it. It's not motivation. It's personal accountability and personal choice. You can get motivated all day long and sit there and feel good about yourself watching Rogan and Goggins and all those guys chant and hoot and holler. Until you're hooting and hollering for yourself, you're never going to feel the same thing. You're never going to understand it, and you're always going to be a second-rate version of what you could be.
Fucking mic drop, dude. Back to the start. This is going to be a really, really hard podcast to follow up, man. This was incredible. Thank you so much.
I will appreciate it, man. I felt like I was all over the place, but like I said, for some reason, I kind of listened, when I listened to Bert and Aaron's, I got a good feel for you, but I also felt like I'm not right. And that's, maybe this is the last thing to say, is I know that I'm still, this iteration of me, I'm going to look back at and laugh at it one day, because as much as I have figured out, I still have so much more to figure out. And that's what bothers me about these types that get up there and they're like, hey, come to my men's group. I'm going to charge you $5,000 for this weekend, and we're going to paint up like Navy SEALs, and we're going to run really hard, and we're going to hug and cry, and we're going to do all these things. Those people are still on a journey too. And I'm not saying that they don't have the validity to help you, but guess what? Their help is now commercialized. Doesn't mean that it's not beneficial, but there are enough good people out there probably in your, do you know your neighbors? Like, start there. Start meeting your neighbors. Walk door to door and say hello, introduce yourself, because more will get done in a neighborhood when you know your neighbors than if you remain strangers and hope. Start knowing your neighbors, start knowing yourself, start doing good to everybody you meet. It's a recipe for success.
Shout out Jeremiah Wilbur. I had him on and he spoke about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's
Yep.
talked about that a lot. Know your neighbor. Be good to your neighbor, man. Hey,
Yep.
listen, dude, stay on the line. We'll small talk for a second. But, Brandon, thank you so much, brother. This was fucking incredible.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yes, yes, sir.